From the studios of Books in Motion, this is Andrea Bates reading A Vacation to Kill by Eunice Mays Boyd. Now let's begin with A Vacation to Kill with Chapter 1. The rain began to fall. Allegra Tate could hear it pattering on the roof of the motor coach, see it on the road ahead and on the vineyards of Provence. Last night in Nice, the moon had been shining on the Côte d'Azur, a gibbous moon. Leaning back in her coach seat, Allegra wished she'd never thought of gibbous. She tried to remind herself that gibbous, as applied to the moon, bore no relation to gibbet, as applied to the gallows, the structure from which criminals were hung. What a terrible thought to dredge up on a spectacular trip like this, she thought. Across the aisle in the seat behind Olive Wallace, Jen Cooper was pawing through her handbag. Even inside the bus, she looked windblown. Where did I put my passport? Winifred Jenkins, who sat gracefully behind her, never had a problem controlling her hair, scarves, handbags, or any other appendage loose or attached. You're improving, she told Jen crisply. This is the first time you've lost it today. Jen made an unintelligible sound. Why don't you always keep it in the same place? Winifred continued. That way you'll know right where to find it. Allegra frowned. She was witnessing the scorn of the organized for the disorganized. It had begun when they left Paris and had only gotten worse since leaving Nice. She supposed this sort of thing was bound to happen on a tour as small as this. A group of 5 women either got on each other's nerves or they jabbered to such an extent that no one saw any of the rich French countryside. They were too busy talking about their families and their jobs or about the lack of soap in the last hotel bathroom. That, Allegra supposed, was why Olive had hired Brian Gifford to join them on this tour. Not only was he the only man, not counting the handsome young bus driver who didn't speak English, but as tour director, he had to smooth the ruffled feathers in the bus and keep the local population from being offended at every stop. Brian also felt obliged to pound home a certain amount of information about the places they were visiting and the regions they were driving through. To Allegra, it was all too wonderful and exciting to miss. The exquisitely neat little vegetable patches like the one they were passing now, with occasional rows of flowers as if they'd been thrown in for color. The well-tilled farmland, the lawn-like pasture land, complete with cows, and the farm buildings snug about the house, some of the farmyards fastidiously neat, some alive with chickens and geese. Were they searching for worms in the summer rain? Allegra kept hoping she'd see pigs looking for truffles, but perhaps they were too far south. They were passing a vineyard now. Miles of purple grapes as carefully tended as an English hedge. Beyond the rolling green rows, the twin turrets of a small chateau. If it hadn't been for Olive, Allegra wouldn't have been able to see any of this. Who cared if she'd been brought along as a combination companion, lady's maid and porter, with overtones of travel agent? When Olive said she'd pay for the entire trip if Allegra would do all the dirty work, Allegra had jumped at the chance. She and Olive had known each other since they were 10, and even 40 years ago, Olive had been a moneymaker. The few nickels and dimes Allegra left home with always found their way into the grubby purse, with the finger-bending clasp that was as much of a part of Olive as the hands she closed it with. As time passed, the purse had become more sophisticated, but it was always there, always full. Olive's current purse snapped loudly as she waved a 10-franc note at Allegra. "Buy me some slides of the Le Puy area when we get to Marseille," she instructed. "Ask Henry to stop when you see a place that might have them, and be sure there's a picture of the Black Madonna with them." Allegra lowered her head to hide her displeasure. No, please. Just an order. This was typical of Olive, like calling the French driver Henry instead of Henri. Why hadn't she thought of those slides when they were in Le Puy? It was next to impossible to find slides of a place once you were out of it. Oh well, Allegra had agreed to do.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?